Alrighty, welcome back to that WNBA podcast, the podcast where we talk all things WNBA, where hopefully I introduce you, whether a new fan or old, to the incredible women and the incredible stories that happen around the WNBA. Welcome back. Make sure you follow on YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts from, as well as Twitter on that WNBA podcast and other social media platforms. And look, let's get straight into it. I'm a bit late on this episode. Last week was quite a big week. I wanted to let some things kind of settle and pan out before I did this episode. And while that happened, there was quite big news on the NBA front, which if you guys have watched the show before, you will know I'm a big Dallas Wings supporter, and that stems from me being a big Dallas Mavericks supporter. So you can see me wearing today City Edition Luka Doncic Dallas Mavericks uniform, which of course is kind of in response to the big NBA trade that happened Saturday evening, American or Dallas time. And we know obviously that Luka was traded to the Lakers for a almost 32-year-old Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a 2029 first-round pick. Now, I'm not here to talk about that, but if I'm looking a bit scruffy, it's because I didn't get much sleep. I was also not too well. That's a separate issue, but I thought I'm just going to put out a podcast regarding some of the trades and some of the free agency stuff that's been happening in the WNBA, which is also, of course, incredibly interesting and what we want to focus on here. So with that in mind, let's talk about that first of all. So we'll start right at the beginning, and excuse me for looking down here. I've just got my notes in front of me. The first one really that was a little unexpected. I guess maybe you could kind of read the tea leaves a little bit. We've already mentioned beforehand that Kelsey Plum was designated as a core player for the Las Vegas Aces. Now, early, once the trade period opened, we saw that the Vegas Aces traded Kelsey Plum to the Los Angeles Sparks, and the Seattle Storm were also involved in a 3-team trade. So Jewell Loyd has gone to the Aces, Kelsey Plum has gone to the Sparks, and it was a sign and trade package with some draft picks involved as well, including the number 2 pick, which is going to the Storm. Now, it's interesting to me that the Sparks did this. I mean, I think it's the right call. You know, Kelsey Plum is established, 2-time champion, great player. She can run their offense. You've got Cameron Brink there already, and they're probably going to miss out, obviously, with Dallas having the first pick in the draft on Paige Beckers. So they're trying to improve. They said they weren't sure about who was going to be there at number 2. I mean, I would have thought, due to all accounts, that Juju Watkins would have been at number 2 in the WNBA draft. But then again, they also have a center now with Cameron Brink. So maybe they were looking just to get that kind of offensive-minded kind of point guard, shooting guard that could get them some more scoring going. Then on Tuesday, the Mercury made a big deal to land Alyssa Thomas from the Canadian Sun. And look, she's only 2 years removed from being MVP runner-up in the MVP voting, And then 3 days later, they followed that up by pairing Thomas with Satou Sabally, who, of course, again, if you've watched the show before, you know that me being a Dallas Wings fan, I was also quite disappointed with the fact that Satou wanted to go somewhere else. Obviously, that was her decision. She's been a great servant to the Dallas Wings, and she also accepted that core designation, which meant, of course, that we could get something in return, which was great of her. They were all WNBA first team picks in 2023. and that was a sign and trade deal involving the Dallas Wings and the Indiana Fever. And it was also a 3-team trade. So it was quite a big trade. I think this got finalized today. I'm not sure if this is the final look at it, but really the important part is that the Mercury gets Satu Sabali, Kalani Brown, and Sefku Uzon. The Wings got Alyssa Smith from the Fever, which I think is great if you're going to lose Satu. Now you've got a kind of reliable scoring beat option. You've got Taisha Harris as well, Micaiah Herbert Harrigan, and the number 8 pick in the 2025 draft. And then the Fever also got Sophie Cunningham and the number 19 pick in the 2025 draft. So the Fever now have done some amazing work. Actually, they've really pushed themselves into title contention with Bonner as well. So yeah, look, they've done a great job. Brittany Griner also agreed to sign with the Atlanta Dream earlier in the week, and potentially Diana Taurasi could be obviously weighing up retirement. But yeah, the Mercury will have one of the more star-studded rosters this season, so maybe that will convince Diana to hang around for one more season. Yeah, if you've got Satu there as well and whatnot. What else have we got here? So we know now, I guess, that Sabali chose the Phoenix over New York. I'm not sure if that's to do with monetary reasons or if she thinks she's got a better shot over there. But that was quite interesting. What else have we got here? The Dallas Wings, we've talked about. Let's see. And the Indiana Fever we've talked about a little bit. I feel like there's something I'm missing here. Yes, Natasha Howard. So Natasha Howard as well was a free agent. She played for the Dallas Wings last season. She also signed with the Fever, so that's another reason why the Fever have suddenly kind of shot into contention. And yeah, really, really interesting. So it's quite an interesting off season so far. I'm sure we'll have more things to talk about. But Jewel Lloyd, obviously going to the Aces will also be quite interesting for them. I mean, they're only 2 years removed now from being back-to-back champions, so maybe that kind of gives them a bit of a refresh. We'll have to just wait and see. I think the Sparks probably got the best deal in that trade for me, in my opinion. But we'll see what happens there. Look, something else I've read around the place, and this is kind of going to be a slower episode for me. I mean, it's going to be quite quick in a way because we don't have a huge ton to talk about, but it's going to be a slower episode in the fact that I'm just kind of reading through some of these trades here. And something interesting that's popped up, which I totally disagree with. I don't think this has got a single teeny little chance of happening, but you can tell me what you think. Obviously, Seattle now lands the number 2 pick with that trade with the Aces and the Sparks. Somebody said in an article that landing the number 2 pick suddenly puts Seattle in a position to make a run at the number 1 pick. If Beckers tells the Winds she'd rather return for a 6th year of college eligibility than come to Dallas. Giving their year-old practice facility strong fan support and history with UConn point guards, the Storm would be an attractive landing spot for Beckers. Now, This is interesting to me because I've said before I don't think Paige would do this because all the rumors were that, we think Paige should be going to LA. Paige should be going to LA because, she's an LA type of girl and there's Cameron Brink there and it's going to be great and this and that. And I thought, no, I don't think Paige has got that sort of personality. I mean, she might like to go to LA, don't get me wrong, but I think she wants to go to the WNBA. I think she wants to be the number one pick, which she's well deserving to be. I would love if the Wings got her. But I think, like Caitlin has just gone to Indiana, who were not a good team, right? She took that on. I think Paige will be exactly the same. Paige will not want to come out here after Caitlin's just gone to the Fever and kind of, the Fever now have the best attendance in the WNBA and all this merchandise and, she's the face of the franchise. She's not going to want to come out here and say, hey, I don't want to be the number one pick because I don't want to go to Dallas. Now, if she were to say, I want to do another year of college to develop more, that's one story. But to use that as leverage against the Wings to then try and go to Seattle doesn't make sense to me. I mean, Seattle's a great team, but the Dallas Wings have just improved incredibly well, okay? Not to the same point of the Fever, obviously. I know they lost Satu, but they have just improved. They've actually got quite a good roster now. They still have a Gumbawale, and I can't see why you wouldn't want to land in Dallas. Dallas is a great sports city. You don't have to be there forever. You can go there. You can be the number one pick. You'll be the face of the franchise. You will be playing big matchups with the Fever, etc. You already have quite a good roster to build around. And from everything I see, there's no indication. I mean, she came back that extra year to UConn because of her injuries. I don't see why she would do another year at UConn. I don't quite understand why she would do that. I mean, she's now probably the highest paid female college athlete. She has her own PE and the Nike signature shoe line, which I have bought, which I've purchased, and I would purchase Dallas Wings jersey, or as many of them as I could financially if she were to become a Dallas Wing. And I just don't know why she would go back for another one, except for the chance to win a championship. But I think that the main reason to come back was to play, to get another year after that injury, to develop further in a familiar environment. And I think now with this attention from Nike, etc., I don't think there's any reason why she wouldn't go into the WNBA and take advantage of it just like Caitlin did. I think she would get her own signature shoe. I think it'd be amazing. And what I've seen here is that, Seattle could offer the Wings a number 2 pick, an additional first rounder, including the Sparks 2026 first rounder, which is upside if Los Angeles misses the playoffs. And, the Storm now has a league high 5 first round picks over the next 3 years to offer for number 1. And the Chicago Sky, who picked 3rd, also hold 5 first round picks. It doesn't make sense to me why Dallas would do that. You've just made a couple of good trades. You want to be contending. You were in the WNBA semifinals 2 years ago. And, you've still got Ogunbowale. You've got a decent roster. The 5 draft picks in the next 5 years of the WNBA first-round draft picks is not going to make a difference, even if you could get all of them. The draft right now, the WNBA players right now that are coming out in these drafts are the best that they've ever been. And the handful of players that are leading this group of WNBA players that is going to change the face of the WNBA were Caitlin Clark, Cameron Brink, Angel Reese last year. Okay. And this year, it will be Paige Beckers. Then you have Juju Watkins, fine. But Paige Beckers is going to be the one that moves the needle. She's going to be the closest thing to a Caitlin Clark. She can score. She can run an offense. Her body, to me, is already a little more WNBA grown, more of a grown woman's build. As long as she stays healthy, she's going to be the one to move your needle. She's going to be the face of the franchise. You know what you're getting. You're going to know that you're going to get the merchandise sales, the shoe sales. You know, you're going to fill the building. I don't know that Dallas would ever consider, unless Paige Beckers really threatens, I don't want to come here, I'm going to do another year of college, which, again, I've talked about this. I don't know why Paige would do that, because you're not guaranteed next year to go to the place you want to go. Because the Sparks, with the roster they have now, although if they were to lose in those, you know, if they weren't going to make the playoffs and Dallas would get another higher draft pick, they're probably not going to. Cameron Brink will be back from an ACL injury. Okay. You now have Kelsey Plum. There is no reason for me to believe that the LA Sparks will not be close to or make the playoffs with that new roster. Now, if they make the playoffs, they're not going to have a high round draft pick. So where is Paige going to go? Why would she not want to go to Dallas? Would she go to the Storm next year? I think the Storm are going to be fine. Who's going to be the lowest? Maybe the Chicago Sky next year? I mean, I can see that happening. I can see a few other teams being at the bottom of that list and high in the draft order. But I can tell you, it's not going to be any big markets. It's not going to be New York. It's not going to be now what I would consider now a big market because of Caitlin Clark. It's obviously not going to be the Fever. Okay, I don't think that Paige would want to go play with Caitlin regardless. I think you want to be the face of your own franchise. It's not going to be Dallas, okay? It's not going to be LA. Where else do you want to go? You want to go to Seattle? Sure. Why? I personally don't understand it. But if Backers does go number 1 to Dallas, which I have always presumed and still think she will, okay, Seattle would have its pick of Olivia Miles from Notre Dame, Kiki Irefan from USC, French center Dominique Malonga. All of those have potential to be really good young core in the future. Yeah, look, I just don't understand it. I think that's the biggest, let's say, rumor I've seen out there, or kind of out there idea, and I just don't understand why that would happen. So, look, those are my thoughts. It's really quick. I'm not going on for much longer. I'm not feeling too well today, but I thought I'd just pop out a podcast while I'm at home recovering. And look, I'll make another podcast coming up this week. I don't know what we're going to do it about unless there are some more moves of some sort. Otherwise, I might wait to put out another podcast in a couple of weeks' time. But for now, look, enjoy the WNBA news that's coming out. The free agency and the trade decisions are still very, very much very interesting, very exciting. Even if the NBA yesterday just kind of said, hey, hold my beer. Let's just give you the craziest in-season trade of all time. If you want my opinion on that quickly before I go, I think it's devastating. I think it's a terrible decision. And I think that the head office of the Dallas Mavericks will be fired in the next 3 to 4 years. Unless they win a championship, it's all forgotten for a little while longer. But the future of this team over the next 10 years has been flushed down the drain. They don't win a championship. They have no good draft picks. They have no other good young talent that they'd want to get rid of. They do not have a franchise player anymore. The 3 best players are now 32 and older. And I just can't see this going anywhere. I can see them maybe being good this year or next year, maybe contending for a title, but I think that Luka in LA is going to be the head of that franchise for the next 10 years. He's going to win multiple championships, MVPs, retire. He's already an NBA Hall of Famer, but he will retire an NBA Hall of Famer, first ballot, and his number will be retired by the Mavericks the Lakers and wherever else he goes. And I think the Mavericks are going to look back at this and say that it is the worst trade in NBA history. And with that, I'll leave you all. And thanks again, as per usual, for watching that WNBA podcast. Check us out on all your podcasting platforms, including YouTube, Spotify. Follow me on Twitter, on Instagram. And as per usual, until next time.